Hello and welcome to Oakville Matters. Today, we're going to talk about growth, which is something that at least 65% of our residents tell our annual or our biannual survey is of great concern to them. And there's a lot going on around growth right now. And with us today to delve into it are the Commissioner of Infrastructure for the town of Oakville, Phoebe Fu, the Director of Planning, Gabe Charles, and our Senior Planning Strategist Guru, Jeff Abma. And many residents are familiar with Jeff because he gives really good slideshows and has done a really good job with our residents associations explaining what we have to do. And that's an important point to start with. So Jeff, back me up here if you can. Our growth is ordered by the province of Ontario, and we don't get to say no. And so far, I think I'm still right, we get to say where, we just don't get to say no. So over to you. The biggest place to put it is Midtown. Can you walk people through what Midtown is?
Sure. So Midtown it's our urban growth center. So the province specifies, they've specified 25 urban growth centers across the GTA. And these are essentially either existing downtowns or emerging downtowns in the case of Midtown Oakville. And our Midtown is located around the Oakville GO transit station. And the idea is to put lots of people and activity within a 5 to 10 minute walk of that GO station to basically help us reduce car dependency. So if we're going to accommodate more and more people and put them in these growth nodes like Midtown, we need to make it so that there's lots of different ways to travel within that neighborhood. But it's about creating a well-designed community where people live close to most of the places they want to go in a day. And then you've got transit like Via Rail and GO and Metrolinx, the GO station, to allow for other ways to get around. But it's about walking and biking in a good neighborhood as well. So that's the best way to accommodate growth in the future, is a bunch of these nodes, and Midtown is our big one.
Right, and our official plan, Gabe, has more than this one. This is our biggest growth node, I guess, but we've got quite a few others, right?
We do. So Midtown is our growth center, as Jeff mentioned, and we have other ones that follow along our major corridors along Trafalgar and Dundas. So that would include Uptown. And we also have the Hospital District, and just a little bit west of that is Palermo along Regional Road 25. The other major transit station area we have, which is sort of the sister to Midtown, is the Bronte GO. And these areas are where we are positioning the most amount of population and employment growth over the next 30 years. That is in line with the work that we've been doing with Halton Region through their growth management strategy. And really is, to expand on what Jeff was saying, it is how we take the population that the province allocates to us and to the region and how we distribute that throughout the town. And that really is based on the structural framework that we worked on with council over the last few years, being our urban structure. And that identifies those centers, those corridors where we're focusing the intensification centers, and where we'll also find that higher order transit in the fullness of time, because we have been having those discussions and working with Metrolinx on future bus rapid transit along Dundas and Trafalgar. So those are the key places where we want to put the population and put the jobs, so that people have that proximity to transit, as Jeff was saying.
So let's put some hard numbers to this. As I understand it, the urban growth center around the Oakville GO station is, by decree of the province, by a law of the province, in fact, supposed to fit a minimum of 20,600. I don't know how it got to be 20,600, but a minimum of 20,600 people and jobs. And I think we break that down into around 13,000 residents and around 7,000 jobs. Is that right? And then on a not too much smaller than that scale, the Bronte GO station might be 15,000 and the Palermo area might be 15,000. But the part that keeps me up at night is you're never done growing. You're always growing in the province of Ontario. There is no full mark on this jar. And so I've been greatly worried that the residents don't understand that if they underuse the growth center or the growth nodes, growth is going to spill out of them, and it's going to threaten the things that we're trying to protect: our green space, our stable, established neighborhood streets, and for that matter, farmland, which is a very popular topic right now. So what is keeping Midtown from taking off? Commissioner Fu, I gather that there's some work the province needs to do to make it possible for its designated urban growth center to actually happen.
Yes, Midtown is a place where it already has transportation network that's currently supporting it. But when you imagine the growth that you just mentioned, is quite significant. Even with the GO station available and promoting mixed use densities to build there for transit usage, one of the key thing is that right now everyone come on and off Trafalgar, and we really do need to open up a second interchange to become a full interchange at Royal Windsor. And so the Midtown transportation plan to make sure people could get in and out and across Midtown is to recommended to the Ministry of Transportation to enhance the two interchanges. The Royal Windsor interchange being a full interchange, currently it's just partial. And then the Trafalgar, we're even recommending the direct access into Midtown, which means when you get off Trafalgar, you don't have to turn left or right onto Trafalgar from QEW. And you could go directly straight into Midtown, into our main street. So we have been pursuing with the ministry to put on their books the two interchanges into their capital plan. We currently haven't been quite successful, but we've been working with them on transportation modeling, numbers, and certainly we want to come to an agreement with them from a cost sharing perspective to get those interchanges going such that we can unlock the potential of the development in Midtown.
Thank you. That's a very good summary. And for 16 years now, this has been a province of Ontario designated urban growth center. And for 16 years now, the province of Ontario has been unable to get out of its own way and enable it to happen. And I can tell you that last week, I met with the Minister of Transportation, and for the first time, I got a definite maybe that they might fund the interchanges. So there you go. All those people who think that government works slowly are probably writing this down for their book of proof. And onward and upward, I suppose. But there'd be a heck of a lot of affordable housing around the GO station if the province could only get out of its own way. So Jeff, what is Midtown supposed to look like? There's one of the questions that I get sometimes is, can't Midtown just be gentle density with no tall buildings at all? And how do you fit 20,600 people into 250 acres approximately with only gentle density, whatever that is? I take it that's 4 stories or less.
Yeah, I think we're going to need more than 4 stories in Midtown. I know currently right now, you're allowed to build 20 stories in a lot of places, but we're currently working on updating those policies, because if you're going to put height in Oakville, I would argue that this is the place to do that. And so in other places in Oakville, we're already seeing approvals of 25 to 30 stories. And there's certainly a lot of developer interest to build even taller buildings than that next to the GO station. Some developers have expressed interest in 40 to 50 stories, for example. So I think height is definitely something that we're going to need to see in Midtown in order to accommodate this growth. But when I say height, we also need to add the piece to it that as I've said before, you can't be afraid of height, because what you need to do is design the street level, design the community really well in the public realm down at the street, so that you almost don't even notice the height of the buildings, because what really captures your attention is the public realm, the environment in which all of these buildings fit together. And I do have a slide showing here some of the ideas that we have for Midtown, and you can see it's a lot of walkability, it's a lot of places to cycle, a lot of good, little public plazas, park spaces, so that it's a very attractive community to be in, and it's a place to live, not just a place to travel through. And you have most of what you need to live in your day within the community, right? You've got places to eat, places to buy food, places to work, places to live, places to recreate, all those type of things, all within a really well-designed and attractive community. That's what we're intending for Midtown to be a really well-designed place. And yeah, transit will be a part of that, but it's really about focusing on where people walk and cycle and how they move in and around that community, so that it's a great place to be and becomes a destination for all of Oakville, not just the people who live there.
It makes a lot of sense to me that if you want to have big public spaces in Midtown or anywhere for that matter, you should push the buildings up in order to get more ground space, let's call it. We'll have a new thing that we're looking for. In addition to green space, we want ground space. And some of that ground space could be green space, because we could have beautiful treed boulevards if we just shove the buildings back and up. So what else can you show us about the prospects of Midtown?
Well, as you point out, though, I think the park spaces are really important. And so we've got a parks and open space strategy that's being worked on here at the town, and it will help. I think the park spaces that you'd see in Midtown are going to be different than the ones that we've seen in our established neighborhoods. They won't be the big ball diamonds and sports fields. It'll be more of the urban squares and the plazas. But there's also a hydro corridor that runs along the tracks. So we're really envisioning, taking advantage of that open space as well as a place to put, say a multi-use trail and along there, and really tap into that. But I think another piece that's really important is that when development goes in, that there's likely be, to complement the public spaces, is to have these privately owned public spaces, whether it's interior to the block, that will really serve the residents of the developments, but also for anybody else in Oakville who are wandering through can utilize these spaces as well. As I guess they're called POPs, privately owned public spaces.
And what would that look like?
And we're still working on that as well, right? So it could be a place, it's got some park benches, it's got some patio spaces. You could have maybe some cafes that spill over onto it. You've got some seating outside. Maybe there are some that have been designed you could incorporate market gardens in some of these public spaces as well. They're going to be trees. There's places to sit, planter boxes. Just a lot of things that come with really good design. I think downtown Oakville, the new improvements to Lakeshore gives you an example of what could happen along Cross Avenue, as well as like what you said with the boulevards with more trees and places to walk and sit and just hang out.
So Gabe, I saw, or Mr. Planning Director, I'm never going to get used to the formality of this business I'm in now. I recently saw an interesting design for a building where the bottom level was pushed back into the property, so that a wider sidewalk, a big fancy European walkable sidewalk, not to get all fancy, boulevard could be had with patio space and still plenty of room to walk and bike and everything. And then up a couple of stories, the building came back out, I guess to the property line, I don't know. And what I thought was neat about that, we have rain and snow in this country, even in Oakville. And it looked like a public benefit was had because there's shelter. You could sit at a patio in all but a violent rainstorm, perhaps. So and that was in downtown Oakville. I saw that. Where did that design Did your department have anything to do with prompting that design, or did that just come naturally?
That one in particular is not ringing the bell for me, but oftentimes what we do when we're working with architects is we can set out some parameters of what it is that we want to achieve, and the architects on the private side, they'll then tend to take it from there in terms of what it is that we ultimately want to deliver. But what you're focused on right there is key to what we want to deliver, which is really designing for people. And Jeff was really getting into that, about how we're really moving away from saying that it's not a car-centric location being Midtown. That's not to say you can't have a car. Of course you can have a car. It's where it fits within the entirety of that spectrum of how we're moving people around, because people really are the key to this area. It's not just a matter of dropping in some buildings and then Midtown is done. It's about how we design that community, how we build that community so that people are able to be able to live in that area. And it's not just a destination in terms of landing at the Go platform. People are able to use that space. So when we're looking at the entirety of those spaces, it comes down to things like what direction are the streets going in? Are they north, south, east, west? How much sunlight do we want to ensure that we're having on the sidewalks and on the boulevards, on the patios? How are the buildings designed in terms of solar gain that they're looking to do in terms of being able to reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Are they looking to make use of different times of the year and how their sun orientation is going to be? So that's also why, in terms of looking at building heights overall throughout Midtown, we have to be very deliberate, because we want to ensure that people continue to have those sky views, that they continue to be able to enjoy being out on the sidewalk throughout the day, but that they also have opportunities for shelter in those types of weather events, rain and snow, et cetera, that they're sheltered from that. It really is working closely with the development community to ensure that the vision of what we want to have as a well-designed community for Midtown, that they're able to deliver that and work from our direction.
It sounds like you're forced to be a balancing act, if I could be so bold. Commissioner, there was a scheme when the Ontario Growth Plan first came out and the Oakville Urban Growth Center was first announced by the province, that the GO station might move a little bit to the east and straddle Trafalgar, and that was going to improve people's access to it, because up to now, there's really only one way in there. If we could straddle Trafalgar and move the bus bay over to the east, we could have a much more efficient use of the GO station, and it could serve people with less aggravation or convenience. What's happened to that?
But you stole all my thunder, actually. That was the plan with Metrolinx, and they did a study to show the expansion of not only the GO station itself, the bus loop to go onto the east side of Trafalgar. Currently, that is not Metrolinx's plan. So they have moved away from a study that they completed, unfortunately. And we actually planned the entire road network around Midtown, around that expansion of the GO station to the east side of Trafalgar. Not only it would provide more efficient movements in and out of the GO station, they're currently quite often stuck once it's full back to capacity on the west side of Trafalgar, getting in and out of that light. We even introduced another north-south link parallel to Trafalgar on the east side to get the buses in and out faster. So everything from the road network, even including a flyover of a dedicated pedestrian walkway through QEW to direct connect to that GO station, is all part of the plan. It is very unfortunate, though, at this point, Metrolinx's GO station expansion plan does not include the movement into the east side, while all of our road networks planned around it. So town staff again is actively pursuing with Metrolinx to retable this plan and really demonstrate the benefit of the expansion of the GO station to the east side, such that there's efficient movement of people in and out of that area.
Yeah, thank you for that. You know, I remember perfectly well 16 years ago, Metrolinx announcing that, so in 2006, Metrolinx announced very proudly that by 2016, there would be a Metrolinx BRT, bus rapid transit, running from Dundas down to the Oakville GO station. We should set our watch, we should show up for the opening, and we should ride that puppy. And so, we didn't take it into our heads, unaided by the province, that, the GO station was going to move and there was going to be a BRT. They made a plan, they committed to it, they announced when it would be open, and then it started slipping. And it slipped, and it slipped. In fact, it's no longer in their plans. It's in there after their current plan. Maybe we'll get around to it. And this is my favorite theme. And I know I sound like I'm whining, but there's just so many ways you discover once you start working with the province of Ontario. Just if you look up in the dictionary, the picture dictionary, unreliable, it's going to be the province of Ontario will be the first picture in there. And it is so frustrating. I can't tell you. They don't do what they say. But, oh, wait, I kind of ran into a dead end there. We still, alas, have to do something, because the orders to accommodate the people, they're still there, even though they're not doing their part. And don't get me started about how late they are with the schools. I think we have 500 portables in Halton, which is just a travesty. So Jeff, let's go back to the bright, sunny, beautiful day when Midtown is done, and show us some more pictures of the bright future that we're being driven toward.
Sure. I think one of the things, you brought up schools, and that's a question we often get, right? Where are the kids going to be going to school? And initially, the school boards have indicated that, students in Midtown they'll accommodate them in some of the existing schools in the surrounding neighborhoods, because quite frankly, in this area, they've projected that enrollment is declining in these. So it's a good news story for those schools in those neighborhoods. But I think in the fullness of time, we're going to start to see schools being developed as the need grows in Midtown in a different form than we've traditionally seen them. I think we're going to start to need to look at, I would call them, say, vertical schools, right? Ones that are integrated into mixed use buildings, perhaps the playground areas or our rooftops, where there's green space up above the street level, and incorporated into buildings where there's other complementary uses. Maybe you could essentially work in the same building that your kids go to school. And I could see that being an interesting part of Midtown.
Well, and you're not just making, this isn't just a fantasy. Didn't we just see last week the Toronto District School Board announce a vertical school? Like, do you have the details on that?
I don't, but I've been keeping tabs on a little bit on their growing up policies. So it's about how do you raise families in denser communities, right, where there's a lot of taller buildings. And I think I've always described Oakville as we're kind of at a point where we've been suburban, and now we're starting to grow up and become urban. And Midtown is a good. I think Gabe said this to me the other day. Really, this is a pilot project for what we're going to see in a lot of our growth nodes. And I think we can learn a lot from some of the policies that are coming out of Toronto in terms of how do you raise families in vertical situations. So
there's one thing, the other thing besides, how do we handle all that growth that agitates a lot of people? There's also protecting our green space and farmland. You have some slides that do a good job, I think, of showing the layers of protection around green space and farmland in Halton as a whole. And the perspective of your slide shows Oakville front and center. So could you walk us through those?
Sure. So what I did is I took the Halton's draft preferred growth concept, which will be discussed at an upcoming meeting of regional council. But what I did is I took their concept, which shows Oakville, Burlington, Halton Hills, and Milton, and then I overlaid the province's agricultural land use map, which shows all the areas of prime agricultural land. And you can start to see how that land actually starts to surround or hug, kind of our built up areas at this point. And then I overlaid the Greenbelt plan and the Niagara Escarpment plan to show that, hey, those are under protection. So there's a good chunk of Halton region that's under protection. And then some of that prime agricultural land is protected in there. But what I did show later on is that you can start to see in
Well,
between
you also put the Halton Natural Heritage System,
yes.
which I was very glad to see, because I like to claim that was my creation.
For sure. And so that one even shows that there's even more protection that extends almost in like finger likes down the valleys and ravines into even our built up areas that give, our existing open space a lot of protection. But what you can see is the white belt areas where the region is looking at expanding, because that's the way they feel that it's appropriate to accommodate growth going forward. To expand our boundaries. Unfortunately, what that means is that we lose that prime agricultural land that those expansions are going on to. And that's what these slides show. So Oakville has consistently said, look, at urban boundary expansion should be a last resort, because as we've been talking in Midtown and other growth centers, we need to try and accommodate as much growth as we can in those corridors to create these great communities, because then it supports transit, prevents expanding onto these ag lands, and really is a good way to address our climate change emergency as well.
Yeah, I took the point that the plant, Gabe and you and the rest of your colleagues in the planning department made with council and me, which is that if you do the land needs assessment right, and you look at the real market and not some fantasy of 50 years ago, Oakville can accommodate all that growth, and without wrecking our streets, our stable established neighborhood streets or our green space. And that's a really good success story, if only we were allowed to write it, I guess. And we'll see where we get with that next month. It's been terrific talking with you guys, and I really do hope that the residents who see this find this helpful and hopeful and even inspirational. There's some really basic core messages here that have to be absorbed, and we who take an oath to obey the law have to absorb them. And we do hope that the residents who are by and large a law-abiding bunch will understand that what's coming isn't being made up at town hall. It's just trying to be carefully administered so that it doesn't hurt any of the things that we all value so much. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.